So the first question is, what advice do you have for individual contributors, that's what an IC means, preparing for a new role? If you're a new SE, what advice would you give them?
So this is after they've accepted the offer, or?
Yes.
While we're in the process?
After they have become an SE.
Yeah, so basically, they've accepted the offer, and it's between that time and day one. The advice I typically like to give is to do as much research as possible. Pretty much every company out there has a learning portal, and there's a way to get to it, just if you have, you don't have your actual official company email address or whatever you need to do to actually subscribe or get in there, right? You might not have the richest content, but it shows a lot of initiative when someone can actually use that time off between when they accept the offer, when they quit their job, and when they start their new job, to come up to speed. Most companies, they're not able to do anything like give you anything proprietary or company confidential during that time. Another thing I like to do is, most companies have a blog about what they do, right? Like for us at F5 Networks, part of what I mentioned is we secure applications wherever they are, and we have a threat blog. So that's another thing I point people to, right? They can subscribe to that. They don't need an F5 address for that. And they can just read stories and get smart on our products and our positioning and what we're doing out there.
My advice is to dive in. Just headlong into whatever material is available to you, and it kind of piggybacks off that, because before you start, you've got access to all kinds of material that every company's marketing department is putting out in force, right? And once you start, then it's about getting in, learning, understanding, meeting people, and really making the connections internally that'll help you be successful externally. But then tactically, hands-on, how do you really understand what you're going to be presenting to people, right? In a lot of these scenarios, you're pitching software in our case, you're pitching hardware, whatever it is. If you don't understand it, your prospective customers are going to see right through it. So it's building that knowledge and really understanding what it is you're going to be talking about.
So from my perspective, I typically look at it in two buckets. If I'm bringing somebody on, because we do kind of hire up and down the spectrum, if I'm bringing somebody on who's never been an SC before, but may have been a traditional business consultant or an actual end user of the software or in the space itself, I usually have hired them because they can demonstrate some form of critical thinking skills. So I'm not going to tell them how to go think about to be strategic or anything like that. That gives no guidance. What I will tell them to do is go look for speeches or presentations online that really inspire you. Because typically what these folks have come from is not a presenting background. So how do you get them to start looking at what good looks like before I'm physically allowed to bring them in the door and get them exposed to our team? Now, if it's an SC who's been around the block for a long time, the ask is usually industry white papers, something like the Mary Meeker report that just came out yesterday. Start coming up with your point of view on that, because that will serve you when you walk in the door on day one. As much learning content as we can send them, that's great, but usually it's whatever I see as their strengths or weaknesses or opportunities when they come in the door, that's typically what I'm going to advise them.
Cool, so all very good things. I hate having a mic last. I guess with kind of reiterating all of those things are extremely valid. One of the things that I don't see that happens a lot of the times, which even now is a habit that I'm going to start taking on, is after you've been hired, in that time between your start date and when you've actually signed on that paper, take time to actually meet with the people that you're going to be working with. Like, you've gone through the interview process, so now they've interviewed you and they want to work with you. So now establish that relationship kind of outside the office, where you can ask these people for what are their recommendations as well. Because there's obviously what you can find online, blog posts, like what materials are available online. But then there's always the information that's just like tribal knowledge. It's in somebody's head. And it's always like diversify your portfolio. So don't just ask the sales engineering team. If you can talk to someone on sales, pull them aside, ask them for coffee, ask them to meet you. That way they'll open up. Because when you're talking to someone outside the office, you also can get them to be a little bit more open about everything that you're going to be doing.
Awesome. So the next question, we're actually going to start from you, Anthony, all right? Now, everyone gets these being in a sales job, or even engineering job or whatever it is. Hey, this is your 30-day plan, your 60 and 90 day. I actually just completed 90 days at my new gig, so I had to go through one of those. Thank you. What are the important milestones in each of your 30, 60, and 90 day plans? And can this question be both for individual contributors and also as a manager? Can you answer them? What do you recommend your direct reports, and also for yourself?
Gotcha. Okay, so I think for the direct reports, and this is actually very fresh off my mind because we're recently hired, so I've been pulling together our new onboarding plan. If I take a step back and just explain a little bit about Imparticle, being that we are a data aggregation platform that then connects to various different systems out in the ecosystem, it's a very technically challenging product to learn because you're not learning just in Imparticle, you're learning what everyone else does. Because that's really our job, is to go in and understand how you want to connect up a bunch of different tools. And so in the 30, 60, 90 plan for our individual contributors, it was actually extremely important to start with setting the foundation first. And so that's really just going heads in and really concentrating on building and using our product and integrating it to the most common tools out in the ecosystem, like a Braze, like a GA, like a SendGrid. That way you at least understand technically what you're doing with the product. In the 60 days, that's when I'm really concentrating on you being able to verbalize how you talk about this product to different personas. Because we're talking to engineering, marketing, agencies, execs, you really have to nuance that language depending on who you're talking to, and that takes time, but being able to get the grasp of what message needs to be important for these people becomes very important in that 60-day after you understand the foundation of the tech. And then 90-day, what's really important from my perspective is knowing that you have the confidence to go it alone. And so in that last kind of 4-week period, this is where I really built in kind of a shadowing perspective where I want you to take the lead. I'm going to be there, or one of the team members will be there to back you up, but we're not there to, you shouldn't shy away from being the front person of the show. We want you to get confident, need you to get in that position, and having the technical milestones, and also knowing how to speak the language to different personas, you have the right building blocks to then be out in the ecosystem. And as long as you have kind of like your life raft with you, then you should have all of the components to put you in a place where I can really let you go after the first 90 days, then starting to concentrate after 90 days, what are the next building blocks that we need to build upon. Do you want me to go into personal as well?
Up to you.
I'll pass the mic on for individual contributors, and then maybe we'll come back around.
So for us, and just so you guys have context, being at Sprinkler so long, we didn't have an onboarding plan when I started. It was literally, it took me about an hour and a half to get the Wi-Fi password in the office, which was struggle number one. But, so I had the chance to actually build what our onboarding plan looked like and went through a lot of different iterations of that. And one of the biggest learnings that myself and my peers that we were working on this together had was milestones didn't just get the job done. It felt like a check the box exercise, like learn this product or go shadow this person or go read this white paper. So what we did is about 2 years ago, we kind of rejigged everything to focus on both milestones and outcomes. What can you demonstrate at the end of this week or this 2-week period so that we know that we're making progress before it's too late? Because we all as managers have made hires that don't cut it. So how can we figure out what are those leading indicators ahead of time to put the person down the right track so that we haven't sunk a bunch of time in? So for us, in the first 30 days, it's really all about shadowing. I want the new hire to come see what good looks like, and I want them to have a diversified portfolio of what that is. So don't just go shadow the person you sit next to on a daily basis. Go shadow the person in London. Go shadow the person in our Boston office and figure out how are they talking about a particular problem or product offering. Because one of the unique challenges for us is that while it's not always a highly technical sale, it's a highly nuanced sale because at any given day you can talk to anybody across the front office spectrum. So how do you as a non-marketer go and speak a marketer's language? How do you as a non-research analyst go and walk in and be the authority on research and analytics on any given day? So it's both shadowing, and then we will have the technical milestones where I'm expecting them to hit certain product demonstration guidelines. Like you can give me a technical point and click, tell me what this does before we even get to a point of polish and execution. So we really stratify across every single product offering, both our core product set as well as our growth ones, across a 6-month period. And then furthermore, what we do is we start working in different project plans as well. So how can you take on something outside of your day-to-day demoing and sales activities to get you more exposure to build your inherent network so that you can have a place in the organization that's not just derived from revenue and new lookalikes.
Yeah, I think the team will tell you that our onboarding plan is in the 60-day phase right now itself. Joking. A couple of key things. So Braze's product is really deep. It has all kinds of very good ways to speak to different audiences, and a lot of the stuff that I've heard here is definitely are things that we stress. We structure the first 30 days around just the basics. What is this industry? Who are we selling to? How are we making that presentation to them? The 60-day section, and then the basics around our actual product. The 60-day section is more about concepts. So then, among all the different things that we could talk about when we talk about Braze, what do you need to know about those things? And how do we build the knowledge that you need in order to be able to speak, intelligently about those particular concepts to a prospective customer? And the 90-day set is more about then that finesse, right? The fact that we are able to perform activity X based on use case Y from our customer is the 60-day chunk. The 90-day chunk is, all right, now how do you make that even bigger? How do you take that out and get them to see the outcomes that will result from that very tactical, okay, yeah, you can do this thing I need to do as a business, right? And elevating it to that next level is something that helps us get through a lot of conversations about, oh, you don't have this feature, right? Oh, you don't have this checkbox that, ExactTarget has. Well, we don't, but you don't need it because we have a better way to do that, and let us show you how.
So for the individual contributor, I think there's really two parts to this, much like there is for the manager level. So there's the first part is someone that's not been in SE before, making the transition, right? The second one is for someone that's already a seasoned SE. A lot of times this is going to depend on the role, right? If it's a role where there's high frequencies of demos, POCs, presentations, that type of stuff is typically going to be better fit for someone making the jump into an SE from a different role, because they'll gain fluency more quickly with those sort of at-bats and that higher frequency. So typically, the lower frequency of the major account sales cycle, you're going to want to have a seasoned SE. You don't want to have to teach the soft skills to someone in that type of role where relationships are super important. It's just a more strategic sale. In terms of 30, 60, 90 days, both of those paths have an SE mentor, an official one, but I always make it very clear that the team, not only the immediate team, but the larger team, is an unofficial mentor, right? We have things like Slack channels and other email distro lists and things like that where they can ask, to say any question they want, right? And try to get an answer if their mentor's not there. As far as key milestones between 30, 60, 90, obviously 30 days, it's a lot of shadowing, learning the basics. 60 days, usually it's going to be trying to do, transition more from basic understanding to deeper understanding, particularly if the platform is more complex, right? But also trying to wean them off of pure shadowing into leading opportunities where they have a lifeline like a mentor or, more seasoned SE, maybe even an SE manager. And then finally, at the end of that 90 days, you want to try to really get them more to solo as much as possible, right? At that point, there's a confidence that you have in them and that you're also getting from the account executives, from the SE mentors, other people that are telling you, yes, this person's ready, right? We're ready to actually start to do solo efforts. If we go up to the manager level for first-line manager, there's also two paths here. I've done them both. One is where you're promoted from the team, you're an SE, and now you run the team. The other one is you come from one company to another company, and you're an SE manager at both, right? You're basically making the lateral move. Different kind of 30, 60, 90-day plan, right? If you're coming from the trenches of a company that you're already with, you don't need to know how to be an SE. You know the products very well, but you now need to have to learn how to be a manager. So there's a lot of focus on having a mentor that's going to be an SE manager mentor to help you out with that, right? It could be anybody in leadership. It doesn't necessarily have to be an SE manager. It could be an SE leader, leader, sales director, anybody like that. That would be highly important to have. You know, and it's harder to do shadowing, right? As an SE manager, you're not going to go and shadow other SE managers. The biggest challenge there also during that period is trying to backfill yourself if you have to do that, and also kind of taking that player cap off and putting more of that coach cap on. Then moving to the second phase of when you're moving from a company to a new company, and you already have the management skills down, it's the reverse challenge. You now have to learn the technology. Chances are you don't know the technology that well. So that becomes your 30, 60, 90 plan. And the other part of that is getting to know the customers. So one of the things I want to do is I want to get out in the field right away in the first 30 days, and I want to start meeting the teams right away. I want to meet my team in person right away, all their account executives, and that 60 to 90-day period, I want to meet as many customers as I can. If I have a small set of customers, great. I have a better chance of meeting them all in 60, 90 days. But also, you know, at that point, my fluency in the product has to go from very basic to at least a reasonable level. I was a big fan of going through the actual SE boot camp, taking it seriously, doing the homework, all the pre-work that was prerequisite to it, taking the tests that were designated during that time. Not to pass them. If I did, it was great, but it was more to just go through that experience, walk in those shoes of what a new SE was going through in that organization, since I hadn't been in those trenches.